Hello everyone, this is Phoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the N64, or at least my memories with the N64, or if you want to call it the Ultra 64 if you prefer that, since that name actually sounds pretty cool. But either way though, the N64 was the third system that I ever owned, and like right after the PS1, and I got it in the year 2000, and I got it for Christmas on that year. So yeah, I got it pretty late, but either way though, I still had a great time with this system. I own quite a few games, but I also did happen to rent quite a lot, but I'm going to take a look at all the games that I own and telling you my memories with them, since, well, most of the games that I do own, I have great memories of, or where I know is like in the PS1 games, well, there's a lot of them that I rented, but I didn't actually own a lot for it, because most of the time between when I had the PS1 and to the N64, yeah, I didn't really like buy a lot for it because, you know, I was young and, well, we weren't really the richest type of people ever, so, you know, we couldn't really get a whole lot. But, you know, that's okay. We still managed to get by because I was still playing, having some fun with some Super Nintendo and some PS1, and then later had an N64. So let's take a look at some little things here and there. Now this is the N64 that I've had since the year 2000, and yes, I got the blue ice one because blue is my favorite color. And that is one thing I really do like about the N64, is that they have tons of varieties of different colors that you can pick from, which is really cool. Now before going on with the games, one thing I would like to point out is that the controller is really weird. Now a lot of people say that the N64 controller was like the worst thing ever, although I don't think it's the worst thing ever, but it is pretty questionable with certain things. Now this is my original blue controller, where the analog stick is like really fucked up because it wears down every time. In fact, all of my controllers are like that. And this is my third-party controller, which looks really stupid looking. However, I think it actually works okay. I mean, at least the analog stick doesn't wear down, and I've had this controller for more than 10 years, so I guess that proves that this controller did do okay. It's just, you know, you have to get used to it after a while. So that's all of that type of stuff, so now let's move on to the games. So first up, we're going to take a look at the Mario games, such as Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Mario Tennis, and Mario Party 3. Now as for Super Mario 64, that was the very first N64 game that I ever owned. And I was really amazed to be first playing this game since I was so used to the Super Nintendo side-scrolling one. So after when I played this one, it just felt like a whole completely different experience, but it was like really amazing. And I also remember when I first beat this game too, and man, it took me quite a while to do. Although I still have not beaten the game 100%, but I think I was like really close from beating 100%. I don't know, I can't really remember, but I do remember that it was over 100 stars. Same thing goes for Mario Kart 64, since that one also felt different than the previous one. And I have to say, this game is very nostalgic to me, mostly for the music and the memorizing the tracks and whatnot, but that was basically the big thing for me. And yet, this is still my favorite Mario Kart game to date. And yes, I like it better than Mario Kart 8 personally, mainly because of the fact that I grew up with Mario Kart 64, but either way though, they're both amazing games. And now as for Mario Tennis, well, when I first played this game, I thought this was going to be like really boring and stupid just because I never really cared for tennis at all. And then one day I went to McDonald's and I found that they actually had N64s there that you can play, and one of the games that they had there was Mario Tennis, so I played that for a little bit, and man, it was actually really damn fun. Yes, I said that right. I first played Mario Tennis in a McDonald's. Now I know a lot of people would be thinking that's like ludicrous, but believe it or not, that existed back then. And finally, we're going to talk about Mario Party 3. Now I did play Mario Party 2 before playing this one, but however, I never actually owned the game, I just rented it a couple times. But as for Mario Party 3, not only did I rent it once, but I also did buy it right after since I really loved it so much. And personally, I found that the minigames in this one were a lot more memorable than a lot of the ones in Mario Party 2. In fact, a lot of the minigames in Mario Party 2 were very similar to the first Mario Party game, so I guess that's kind of why I never really remembered it as much. But either way though, both are great games. Even though these games can kill your fucking controller though, but you know what I mean if you've actually played these games. And next up is the James Bond games, such as GoldenEye and The World Is Not Enough. Now I am sure that most people are aware that if you owned an N64, this was one great game to own. And it was pretty revolutionary for its time too. Now I have been hearing a lot lately that this game hasn't really aged well, and in that case, I can kind of agree why. I mean, the controls are kind of weird at times, but however, since I did grow up playing this game a lot, I kind of got adapted to it like fairly quickly, so that's why I don't really think the controls are like that bad, but I can see why people cannot get into it as much. but I really love the atmosphere in this game for some reason. I don't know why, I just think it's like really cool. Also, it's worth noting that this is a game based after a movie that is not terrible. And as for James Bond, The World Is Not Enough, now, this game does not get as much love compared to GoldenEye, but I still think it's a pretty decent title. Now, the story mode is not as good as the original one, however, I do kind of like the multiplayer in this one a bit better, since in this game you can actually have bots and stuff that's like shooting each other. But it's still a really good game, although one thing that is really weird is the fact that this game actually had to use a memory card, whereas the old one didn't have to use that shit. I really don't know why it's like that, but either way though, it was still a pretty good game. And now we're going to move on to Gauntlet Legends. And I remember I got this game in the year 2001 at a garage sale, and it was the first Gauntlet game that I ever played in my life. And it's a pretty fucking tough game if you ask me, especially if you're playing alone. Although if you're playing with your friends it can be kinda easy at times, but the game is still pretty hard, but really a lot more fun when you're playing with friends though. But I really like the music in this game, and I also really do like the characters that you can select from being like a wizard, a barbarian, or a Valkyrie, and a bunch of other things like that. Also, I really don't know if this would be considered to be an RPG, but I would say that at least it's an action game with RPG elements, since, well, there isn't very many RPGs on the system, so I think it's just kinda interesting just to note. So yes, overall, it's a great game to play with friends. Next one is Diddy Kong Racing. And yes, I have actually done a review on this game, so there's not really going to be a whole lot I can say about it, but however, this game is still pretty awesome just for the fact that it's a racing game where you can transform into different things, which is very unique. But I still think that one of my favorite memories with this game would probably have to be the fact that just racing around in the hub world. So yeah, I'll just keep this one short since I did make a whole length video about this game, so either way, let's move on to the next one. Now let's take a look at Banjo Kazooie. And that's kind of funny because Banjo was first in Diddy Kong Racing before this game came out. But yes, this game is probably one of my favorite N64 games of all time. Now sure, it may be very silly looking, but hey, it's a pretty awesome fucking game. But I mostly love this game for its music, graphics, and level designs. And I just love the fact that in this game, it's just such a huge castle that you just always gotta wonder what's gonna happen next or what like the next area is gonna look like, because that was one thing that kept me going with playing this game for a long time. And of course, this game is really hard to complete 100%, but however, I've never done that either because I suck at this game. But it's okay though, the game is still really fun. And I used to own a copy of Banjo Tooie, but however, I wasn't gonna talk about it because, well, believe it or not, that game was stolen from me years ago by some jackass. So unfortunately, I can't talk about that one because of that jackass. So I have not played that one in a very long time, but however, Banjo Kazooie is still a great one though. And next up, we have Turok 2 Seed of Evil, which is one of my very few complete in-box games in my N64 collection as of now. Although I wasn't always like that, but I got it like that recently. And this was the very first rated M game that I've played on the N64, which is pretty interesting to know. And yes, this is a game where you kill dinosaurs and it's very bloody, and also it can be pretty creepy sometimes. Especially when you're in that area where you have to fight those like Oblivion guys. Yeah, that voice thing always creeped me the fuck out. But I really like this game's music, and I also really do like the graphics in this game. In fact, that was the one thing that really impressed me with this game, is that I found that the graphics were really good for N64 games. Like, I think this is probably one of my favorite looking games on the system, at least in my opinion anyway. And speaking of creepy shit that I was talking about earlier, not just only the voices were scary, but also I found that those fucking children they had to save in the first mission always scared the crap out of me. And when I was a kid playing this, I always had this weird conspiracy thinking that the dinosaurs are not the real threat, that it's actually the children that are like a bigger threat than the dinosaurs, so yeah, I don't know, I had a stupid imagination back then. But either way though, it still makes me laugh to think that I actually thought about that. And next up we have Glover, which is another game I happened to do a full-length review of, even though it was like a very early episode. In fact, it was actually episode 2 where I took a review on this game. So yes, it was during the time when I was like just getting into it, but either way though, this game is awesome. Although I mostly played the PC version of this game, but however, I did rented the N64 version as well, and well, it's actually still a really good port of it, I find. But I mostly liked this game as a kid, mainly for the fact that it was just such a really random idea that just looked kind of funny, and that's why I wanted to get it, and well, I actually ended up liking it. And I know that this game isn't perfect, since I actually know a few people that did not care for this game at all, which I can totally understand why, but either way though, I know I myself has enjoyed this game from playing it from my past, and I don't mind playing it every now and then these days, but of course, all depends on the gaming mood there. So yes, I will keep this one short since I made a full-length video of it, even though it was like, not very good of a review, but either way. And next up, we're going to take a look at Jet Force Gemini. And personally, I consider this to be probably one of the more uncommon Rare games. And I mean rare as in the company Rare, not like rare as in like it's like expensive. And I have to say, this game's actually pretty good. I did beat it like a very long time ago, and goddamn, that was really fucking hard. But unfortunately, my file got erased. But I did find it to be a pretty cool looking game, considering the fact you get to choose either between a guy, a girl, or a dog that can like fly using a jetpack. Also, the exploring around in this game is actually kind of cool too. In fact, I really did like the environment. I thought it was actually a pretty neat stuff. But there was one thing I remember I did not like much, and that was the multiplayer. I found that to just be really fucking weird. But of course, that'd be something I'd probably explain in a full-length review, but I guess one thing I would say is that the regular shooting each other stuff is alright, but however, the racing thing is just fucked up. But that's something I can get into later though. But however, this game is still pretty damn cool. And next up, we have these two Pokemon Stadium games. Now, I'm sure most of us can agree with one thing, is that if you grew up in the 90s, it's most likely that you like Pokemon, and Pokemon was a very big thing at that time, so, of course, playing the games on the N64 was a necessity for us people. And it was so cool just to see Pokemon being rendered in 3D for the first time ever. Also, the attacks that you get to do look really cool, even though it's unfortunate you don't actually get to see the Pokemon being like hit and stuff, but however, it does have like really cool effects and whatnot. And another thing that I would like to mention, and this is probably the biggest thing that I used to play this game a lot, was in the mini-games. Yes, the mini-games was probably one of the best parts of the game if you're playing with like multiple people. Unless you're playing the Magikarp one, which is like super fucking easy, or if you're playing the Clefairy one, which everyone fucking hates that one, or at least I hated that one, and everyone I knew hated that one too. But either way, both Pokemon games are really fun, even though I mostly talked about the first one, but the second one is pretty much like the same thing, but you know, new additional content, whatever, so it's all good. And last but not least, we have Zelda Ocarina of Time. Yep, a very fantastic game indeed, even though it is pretty overrated, but I still really enjoy this game, growing up with it and stuff, even though I still prefer Link to the Past personally, but this one is still a great game. And I will mostly be talking about Ocarina of Time since, well, I didn't own Majora's Mask for a very long time since, well, as you can see on the box, it says you need an expansion pack. And yes, the expansion pack is that little red thing that goes inside like the N64, which expands like some capabilities. And for the longest time, I've never owned an expansion pack, so yeah. In fact, I remember one time I rented Majora's Mask without even knowing about the whole expansion thing, and then I couldn't play the damn game. Yeah, that kinda pissed me off. But anyways, Ocarina of Time is a timeless classic to me whenever it comes to like the music, the graphics, the story, and everything. I just really enjoyed the whole damn thing. And even though I know the game is not perfect, in fact no game is perfect, I still really enjoyed it. And I'll never be able to forget that ending screen of this game. Ever since when I first saw that, I was like, man, I just feel so accomplished. And that's all the N64 games I'm going to be talking about with you guys today. Now, of course, there's like a lot more than that. I mean, like, there's some such as like F-Zero X, Star Fox 64, and like, I don't know, like a tons of other ones, like, oh, and even Paper Mario, that's another one I didn't mention. But either way though, there's like tons and tons I could mention just like in all my other memory videos, but I have to keep it short eventually, right? So either way though, I really do hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thanks for watching and commenting, and maybe you guys should share some of your N64 memories if you guys have any, so keep it going guys.